Hi, hello everyone. Good morning. This is David from Alpha. I'd like to welcome everyone. Today we have a very interesting workshop for you. It's the virtual interview skills. And today we are here with Cheryl Petruk and Marsha Carbon. Welcome, Cheryl, and welcome, Marsha. If you'd like to introduce yourselves and start. Thank you
Thank you
for being
very,
here.
thank you very much, Davey. So again, as Davey mentioned, my name is Marsha Carbon. I'm an instructor here at Alpha College, and I'm very happy to be a part of this workshop today, the Virtual Interview Skills Workshop.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Petruk, and as Davy introduced us, I'm really happy to be here co-presenting with Marsha. I'm also an instructor here at Alpha College in the Human Resources business area. So looking forward to helping you get your virtual interview skills up to par so that you can be successful in those job interviews that you'll be undertaking after you graduate.
Thank you, Cheryl. And I forgot to mention which department I'm from. I teach tourism. So thank you for that reminder, Cheryl. All right, so let's get started then, shall we? All right. So welcome again to our virtual interview skills workshop. Let's take a look at a couple of the learning objectives for today. We're going to discuss how to create a great virtual setting. We're also going to discuss how to improve your virtual meeting etiquette skills. Before we begin, why are we here? Well, due to the environment that we're currently living in, people are now more than ever studying from home and working from home. So the landscape of being able to get those particular jobs that you would normally apply for has changed, right? Long gone are the days where you would get a call for an interview and you would physically need to walk into that particular environment, shake hands with the person in front of you, and sit down across from the interviewer. Not to say those days are over, but you know, due to the fact that, we're living in an environment where, we are all connecting through technology, we thought it was best and very important that we share this information to you um, uh, as to how to be more successful if you are ever called for one of these virtual interviews, so you could stand out amongst others. Cheryl?
So, what is a virtual interview? Well, a virtual interview is something that takes place remotely. It can be over the phone, but most often using technology like video conferencing, such as we're doing today. And it also use other virtual interviews can also use other online communication platforms such as Google Hangouts, WhatsApp, or various other opportunities that are out there in the technological world. But it has become essential for candidates to learn how to perfect the virtual interview process. So it's really important for you to be comfortable utilizing the technology that is there and that might be presented to you for your virtual interview. Virtual interviews are often conducted much in the same way as face-to-face interviews are. Rather than just being in the same room, you're really there face-to-face with the other individual, but just you're doing it over a technological space. So virtual communication, though, requires special considerations and adjustments due to the limited ability to read body language and facial expressions. So while we see and feel the facial expressions and body language when we're in an in-person interview, sometimes those expressions aren't so overt or intimately attributed in a virtual setting. So really important for you to take this opportunity and utilize the space and the virtualness to be able to convey your body language and your facial expressions and your intonation in that virtual setting.
So, as I spoke about at the very beginning of this workshop, virtual interviews have become the new normal. And the digital age that we are now living and working in has changed dramatically over the years. As I mentioned, people are now working and studying remotely from home. As virtual interviews are a fairly new norm, it is important that students and job prospect candidates are prepared, as I mentioned, so you could stand out above the rest. With this being said, it is very important, more now than ever, that we become even better communicators. So, throughout this workshop as well, not only are you going to learn how to be more successful in some of these virtual interviews, you are going to learn how to be a better communicator, which is very important as well.
So, some of the topics that we'll talk about in today's series is that virtual preparedness is really, really important for you as a candidate being interviewed. So, how do you prepare for a video interview? Well, it's no different than preparing for an in-person interview. Really, it is very, very similar, except you're not sitting across that table or that desk with the person that you're interviewing. But it still means to say that you need to prepare exactly like you would for a in-person interview, except with the exception is that you need to understand the technology and know how to use the technology before you engage in that video interview process. So you need to test your technology, making sure that you understand it. And if you don't understand it, reach out to the people that have invited you for this interview so that you can get a sense of what the technology is all about. If there's something that you need to download onto your computer or your smartphone or your tablet for the interface to run, very important that you look and be confident when you're engaging in this video interview. Keeping your virtual identity professional, that is when you're signing in, ensure that you sign in with your name. Don't use an acronym, don't use a pet name or a name that you would use with your friends. Make sure that you keep your virtual identity very professional as how you would want to be addressed in the work environment. Dressing for success is very important. So just as you would dress up if you were going to a in-person interview, very important that you dress for success for your interview that will be held virtually on a video conference. You want to make sure that you dress to the appropriateness of the organization. So if it's business casual and you find that information out prior to your interview, make sure that you are dressed business casual. When you dress up, you feel like you're dressed up and ready to go to work, as opposed to wearing something that's very casual and not appropriate for work. So making sure that you appear and are professional, and you will conduct yourself much more professionally when you are dressed up in that virtual setting. Um, Create a great set, making sure that you either put on a virtual background on your platform that you're using, or making sure that the things behind you aren't distracting for the person that you're having the video conference with or the virtual interview with. Monitor your body language, making sure that you can be seen properly within the area of your camera or your laptop or your smartphone or tablet, whatever your modality you're using for your interview, and make sure that you rid yourself of any distractions. So that if that means going into a closed room and closing the door behind you, or making sure that your house is quiet, or wherever you're doing the video conference from, is that you're free from distractions. Understanding the meaning of virtual interview etiquette, and if that means Googling or finding out, asking the HR people or the interview invitee who's invited you, inviter who's invited you, ask them what their expectations are prior to the virtual interview. And you can do that in a dialogue through email or a telephone call with the HR people or with the interviewer themselves. Practice answers to common interview questions, and there's a plethora of common interview questions out on the internet. So all you have to do is Google common interview questions for the job that you're interviewing for, and you'll get a list of questions that will come up. Practice those questions in front of a mirror. Write them down, print them out, whatever it takes for you to understand those questions, and practice that in front of a mirror prior to your your interview with your interviewer. And don't forget to follow up. Biggest thing, I think, first of all, is following up with a thank you interview email. for the interview email. Very important. What it does is it says that you're very engaged and that you thank the interviewer for their time and creating the opportunity for you to present your skills and who you are and how it's relevant to your success in that role. So very big thing in the fact is don't forget to follow up with a thank you email to the interviewer, thanking them for their time and for giving you the opportunity to present yourself.
Great. So Cheryl just basically touched on every single one of the topics that we're now going to take a look a little more further in detail. Okay. So if we could just go back for a moment to testing your technology. A virtual interview requires tools like a camera and a microphone on your computer, a software program. Cheryl already mentioned examples like Google Hangouts or Zoom, and very importantly, a reliable internet connection. At least a day before your virtual interview, check all of your technology to ensure it works effectively and can be used to communicate effectively. That means having a functional computer that meets technical specifications, downloading any necessary software, and ensuring the connection is strong enough to sustain a streaming video.
So, dressing for success in a virtual interview, you should dress the same as you would for a face to face interview. Doing so not only makes you appear professional and excited about the opportunity, but it will also make you feel more prepared and confident. When an interview takes place from a remote location like your home, you should expect it to be just as formal as the one that takes place in an office. If you're unsure, business casual is a good standard to follow. A great outfit examples for men and women is a button-down shirt and blazer with slacks.
Creating that set. Cheryl touched on a little earlier. Let's take another look. Ensure that you have proper lighting where the interview is going to take place. Not all of us have the ability to create an amazing background, but use what you have available to you. Please ensure that your background is well kept. No clothes or shoes in sight, or anything that could be a distraction for the interviewer. A plain background is okay. Other acceptable backgrounds can include a fireplace, a bookshelf, some type of ethical picture, even a flat screen TV. Make sure it's turned off though. Make sure you are seated in a well-lit area on a flat surface, preferably at your computer, laptop, or even an iPad, or some type of similar device. If possible, try not to use your smartphone. Your eyes should be at the same level as your camera. If this is not the case, don't panic. You can use a book or a magazine. You may even need one to place one or two just underneath your device for that perfect eye level.
So, monitoring your body language, because interviewing via phone or video limits the ability to communicate with our body language. It's important to utilize our body language in a clear and professional way. For example, if you get a question that is unexpected, make sure you stay poised and take the moment to collect your thoughts. Now, just as in a in-person interview, it's okay to have a pen and a piece of paper in front of you if you need to write down the question so that you can have a better cognition of that question that's being asked of you. So please ensure that you are prepared and that you do have that, and explain that when you're looking down that you're going to write out the question, or that you're taking the question down so that you can best answer the question. Sit up straight and ensure that the camera is placed so your face is in the middle of your screen, not too much blank space above or below your head. It's in most interviews, you shake hands with your potential employer at the beginning and the end of the discussion. So it's very important that your body language cue that helps you establish that relationship. Instead, find other ways to greet and exude enthusiasm, like smiling and giving a confident wave with eye contact. So positive hand gestures as well, very, very important to contribute to that positive body language. And when you agree with something, nodding your head in agreement is a great way to show that you understand what your interviewer is asking of you.
Absolutely. So that nonverbal communication is key, right? Because again, it's very difficult sometimes when we're connecting virtually to be able to, display that. So exactly what Cheryl said, nodding your head, using hand gestures. These are all things that we can do to show that we're interested, show a little bit of enthusiasm. Are all great tips that we can use. So we spoke a moment ago about ridding yourself of distractions and displaying proper etiquette. Let's take another look. The best place to take an interview in your home is in a quiet location with few distractions. Choose a room that is clean and professional looking so the interviewer can focus their attention on you and not what is around you. If you don't have a dedicated office space, you can also use a bedroom or a guest room, your kitchen table, or even a cleared out closet space. I think Cheryl mentioned this earlier. Always remember to remain that eye contact. Never eat during an interview. Try not to drink either, but if you must, a clear bottled water is acceptable. Tell people that you are sharing space with or that you are living with that, hey, it's time for me to have an interview. And ask the people that are in your particular living space to ask them for their if they can be quiet during the time of the interview, and that personal space where you will be conducting your interview should be off limits to the rest of the people in your home during that time. Respectfully explain that during this time it is best that the house stays quiet with limited distractions. If possible, you might also place pets in designated rooms during the time of your interview.
So, practice answers to common interview questions. So, again, as I mentioned earlier, you can go to Google and you can Google common interview questions or behavioral based interview questions for the job that you've applied for and that you're interviewing for. Some of the common interview questions include: where do you see yourself in 5 years? Or where would you like to be in 5 years? Why do you want this position? What are your strengths? And perhaps what are your weaknesses? I always like to ask when I interview people, when I've interviewed people, is perhaps what are your areas of improvement? Rather than a weakness, an area of improvement gives you an opportunity to change that to a positive rather than a negative about yourself. What do you know about our company? So, doing your background information, just like you would in an in person interview, make sure you do the background work on the organization and the job that you've applied for. Make sure that you have all of that at your fingertips. Again, if you have access to a printer, please ensure that you print out the job description and the company information so that you have it right at hand when you're being asked questions about the organization or about the job that you're applying for. And again, be able to write down some questions or points that you may like to ask about. Some further questions might be: what are you passionate about, or what are your hobbies? And then typically at the end of an interview, just like an in-person interview, the interviewer will ask you, do you have any questions of us? And therefore you should come up based on the company information that you've done through your homework and the job description. Ask questions about the company or the job. Very important for the interviewer to know that you have a great understanding about the job and about the organization that you would like to join.
And as Cheryl mentioned earlier, don't forget to follow up. Very, very important. You want after your interview, you want the interviewers to remember you, right? So there remember, you're not the only one that is going to be interviewed. There's going to be several other candidates. This is another way that you can try to stand out. So after your interview, plan to send rather a well-timed follow-up. It's good practice to send a follow-up email within 24 hours of an interview rather, thanking the interviewer for their time and letting them know you're available if they have any additional questions. This will make the interviewer say, wow, okay, this is the candidate. I remember this candidate. And they're going to think back about, how the interview went. And they're also going to say, wow, this is common courtesy and this is very professional of the interviewee that they actually sent us this email and said, if you have any additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Reach out to the HR representative if possible, or hiring manager that you've been speaking with prior, to get a list of your interviewers' emails.
So in summary, preparedness is the key before any interview. But as we mentioned in the opening, the virtual interview process has changed the game somewhat. So three takeaways we'd like to leave you with is prepare, practice, and perform. So take it as a P3. Stand out above the rest with these great tips. So ensure that you're prepared for your interview just like you would be in a normal in-person interview. Practice your questions that you might be asked, and your answers in front of a mirror or in front of a roommate or someone else that you perhaps can do that with. Or even I would say, if you're able to chat with somebody online to get the online experience, you could do that online with a friend or a buddy or a relative and get that interaction of being able to feel comfortable doing it online. And perform. We want you to do well in your interview process. So we want you to be prepared and practice, and that will help you perform to the best that you can be and be the best that you can be in that interview process. And of course, with all of that, we want you to stand out above the rest and be the successful candidate in that job, for that job. So using the thank you email and being outstanding in your performance in your actual interview. We hope that you'll be able to take these tips and utilize them.
Any questions?
I just wanted to ask, what would be the ideal duration to answer a particular question in an interview, in a virtual interview?
I'm sorry, can you just repeat the question? What would be the what?
I just wanted to know what would be the ideal duration to answer a question in a virtual interview. Like if the interview is asking a question, how much time I should take to answer it? Like how long the answer should be?
Okay, well, that's a really great question. Well, number one, it actually depends on what the question is that they're asking you. But I would say make sure that you listen to the question, even collect your thoughts for a moment or two, and then answer the question. I would say within a minute and a half. But again, it really depends on the question that they're asking you. Sometimes it could take a little longer for you to cover all of the bases. But my point is, try not to have it drag on, because you don't want to give them all of this other information that they did not ask for. So make sure that you understand the question and respond specifically to what they ask you, and do not ramble on. So I say about a minute and a half to maybe 2 minutes is acceptable. Cheryl, your thoughts?
Absolutely. And that's where I always say, if you have a piece of paper in front of you, you can jot down some of the parts of the topic or parts of the question that can help you answer that question. So, if it's a specific question about your capabilities, or perhaps how you behaved in a particular job that's relevant in the past, or what type of capabilities you have, you can just jot down that buzzword or that word from the question to help you be able to provide your answer. So certainly, again, I agree with Marsha in the fact that I don't make your answer too wordy or too lengthy. A minute to a minute and a half would be plenty. But if you can jot down perhaps on your piece of paper parts of the question that the interviewer is asking you, and then you might just want to jot down before you answer a few key points, that will help you keep on point or on topic for your answer, is certainly well received by interviewers. And what that does is it also shows them that you're thinking about what you'd like to respond with.
Great question, though. Is there any other questions?
So when answering behavioral based questions, can we use the STAR strategy, because it will be simpler? Like first we will tell about the situation, then the task, then about the actions, and then the results. So it would be simpler. Can we use this strategy while answering the behavioral questions?
Absolutely, absolutely. And Ashprita, that's great because you've obviously learned very well in the recruitment and selection class. So definitely use the STAR technique, because that will synthesize your information that you're giving back to your interviewer. So making it concise, but yet giving them the opportunity to understand the situation, the task, and the action and the result that ended up from the opportunity that they're asking you about.
So I also wanted an advice. So I have to record an interview for one of my assignments. So I just wanted to ask, uh, our professor just mentioned the questions and has given us duration that it should not exceed 1 minute and 50 seconds. So I just wanted to ask, when recording that interview, do I have to give introduction in the starting, or I just have to cover all the questions?
I would say that you definitely need to cover all the questions. Like I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, just make sure that you provide them with the details that they ask you for. So that's very, very important. So just stick basically to the script, think very carefully about the question, and just basically respond to what they're asking you to respond to. Don't make it too wordy and don't provide them with these unnecessary details.
So, can I start directly with the question, with answering the questions, or do I have to give introduction first?
No, I
No,
would say that you could respond directly to the question, and in your response, you could say in response to your question, and then synthesize their question. So, in response to your question about my capabilities as a cashier, let's use that as an example. Here is the circumstances, or here is the experience that I have, and then give your answer. So you could give a very concise response in relation to the question. You don't have to repeat their question all over, but just give a very synthesized form of their question at the beginning of your response.
and yeah, Cheryl just made a great point in response to, like, don't repeat the question over and over again. In response to, and then carry on with your answer is a great way to be able to get to that level of responding to that question. You're not spending too much time talking about the question, but then you dive in very quickly into your answer, which is great.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I actually have a question also. I'd like to ask. You talked about technology. Is there any like platform that the interviewers they prefer to use, like Zoom or Skype? And is it acceptable to use mobile phone?
So to answer the first part of your question, Zoom, from my particular experience, is the number one. Zoom is the most popular platform, and Cheryl could add to this if she'd like. But from my personal experience, everyone wants to know if you have a Zoom account. It's just so much easier. It's user friendly. Everybody can use it. It's so easy to set up. So that's why that is the number one preferred method for virtual interviews nowadays. And the reason why I say don't really use the mobile phone is because, well, the reason why I say don't really use the mobile phone because it's very difficult to, especially if the phones are so small, number one. So it's very hard to get an actual, feel like you're in that virtual setting because it's like, having a FaceTime conversation. And that is not really professional. So that's why I say at least use your laptop computer, some type of iPad where you could really feel like you're in the setting, because using a cell phone is just a very small image of the interviewer. And I just don't think it enhances the experience, in my personal opinion.
I
Cheryl, your
agree
thoughts?
with, yeah, I agree with Marsha, but certainly if that's all that you have is a cell phone, then try and utilize everything else that we've talked to you about, setting yourself up in a private room, setting yourself up in a very quiet area of your home, making sure that your phone is against something that can show you in a nice proportion to the screen, so that it's not right up at your face, so that the interviewer is not just getting your face. They're seeing your whole body, and they're seeing how well you're dressed and how well you're presenting yourself. So try, if you have to use a cell phone, while I agree with Marsha that that's not the optimum, but if that's all that you have access to, then try and set it up as a laptop or an iPad or a tablet of some way that it's at least a little bit further away from you, so that the interviewer can see how well you're dressed, can see your body, and see how you conduct yourself in the interview setting. So that's important. If that's all that you have, try and simulate using a laptop as best as you can for the professionalness of your interview for sure.
Absolutely, and Cheryl's absolutely right. About if you have no choice and you only have a cell phone, okay, try to implement everything else that we talked about to try to enhance that that um, interaction. Because even with a cell phone too, it's very hard to get the eye level. Like how do you do that? It's very difficult. It's the phone keeps moving around, so it's not my favorite. But if you have no choice, again, implement all of those other things we talked about.
Nice. Maybe getting like a tripod for the phone would help, right?
Yeah, a tripod would be great.
Yeah.
A tripod would be great.
Or set it up on a set of books, like Marsha had said about hiring your laptop or your tablet to eye level, doing the same thing with your cell phone, putting it on a set of books and putting it against a cup or something where it can be at the eye level so that the interviewer can get as best the same experience as they can with a laptop or a tablet of some sort. So trying to just make sure that you mimic that great experience utilizing the cell phone as best as you can. So without, the interviewer thinking and knowing that it's like a FaceTime conversation.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I have a last question here. I don't know if any of the students have more questions, but if they have, you feel free to ask, okay, or just type in the chat. But the last question I had here is, we know that some students, they share rooms with other people, or maybe they think that they don't have the ideal place for an interview. So what should they do? Or is it acceptable having the camera off during a virtual interview?
My personal opinion, it's absolutely unacceptable to have the camera turned off. Absolutely unacceptable. So that is the whole purpose. The interviewer wants to see your face. They want to see your body language. They want to see you smile. They want to see how you would interact with another individual. They want to see how you communicate. So definitely, I would say no. Video must be turned on. If you are in a situation, and that's a really great question. A lot of our students are sharing a home, an apartment with several other people. I would respectfully maybe if I even ask if it's possible if they could maybe exit the apartment for maybe an hour during that scheduled interview time. Go into a closet if you can. Make sure it's cleaned out. Just make sure that you have that particular space. Anything you can do to try and get some type of particular space, a corner in a bedroom. Other roommates, hey, I have an interview at 12 o'clock. Please, please, please. I'm begging you, no noise. Go to Tim Hortons if you don't mind. I'll buy you a coffee. Things of that nature are all things that we can do.
Absolutely. And even going into a bedroom and setting up a chair, not just like a desk or anything, but setting up a chair that you're not sitting on a bed where it looks very casual, or you want to look professional. So you want to be sitting. So take a chair from your kitchen table and take it into the bedroom and set your telephone or your computer up on a dresser or a chest of drawers or even on the bed, but pointing away from the bed so that you are sitting. Because if you're sitting comfortably and you're sitting, slouching, that shows the interviewer that you're not interested. You want to show the interviewer that you're eager, that you're wanting to be part of this interview, that you're interested in the job. And so sitting in an upright chair, sitting in a position where it's not I want to say a little less comfortable than sitting on a couch or a bed or a chair, a living room chair by some means, shows that you have the interest, shows that you are professional in your demeanor. And that's what you want to convey, is you want to convey that professionalism, that integrity of yourself and who you are. And also you want to demonstrate that you are wanting the job and eager to, be part of the interview, to exchange the information that the interviewer is seeking from you, from your skills and your past opportunities where they can be of use in this role. So you want to again make sure that you're not sitting too comfortably, but comfortably enough where you can have a very good dialogue. So I would say, even if you don't have a desk or an office that you could go into a bedroom, bring a chair from your dining room table or your kitchen table, and try and make an opportunity where it can look professional, but yet be somewhat comfortable for you and away from your roommates or those other folks in your home.
Awesome.
And
Thank you.
I just want to also add, even if you don't have the best ideal background situation, um, if you are a great communicator, you have confidence, you're smiling, it will just kind of overturn that, the setting that, probably wasn't the most extravagant setting, right? Because that is what the interviewer is going to remember as well.
Excuse
Nice.
me.
Yes, Ashprit, go on.
I have a question. So I just wanted to ask, like some people have a habit when they just try to explain something, they just use hands a lot. For example, I also, while explaining something to others, I just, or answering question, I just use my hands a lot. So is it a good etiquette or a bad etiquette? If so, do we have to avoid it while on an interview?
I would say, I would say I think it's a good thing actually, because I do the same thing when I'm speaking and I'm communicating. I use my hands. It shows that you're interested. It shows, exuberance, right? But I mean, there's a limit to it, right? You don't want to be flapping your hands all over the place like this, right? But very gentle hand gestures that shows the interviewer that you're alive, you're excited, you're happy to be there. So I think it's good, but just be mindful of it. It would be my opinion.
Absolutely. And so position yourself just as you would in an in-person interview. So typically, you would sit perhaps with your hands either flat on the desk or clasped together on your lap or on the desk. So that's how I would position yourself for a virtual interview as well. And remember that when you're on video, as Marsha said, when you get fast moving actions, it really is distracting. So remember, if you are going to use hand gestures, that you do them, slowly or more animated than you would normally in person. Because again, on video, it becomes very distracting and hard for the other person on the other side of the video to really, I want to say it's very distracting for me when somebody uses hand gestures very quickly. But if you are going to use hand gestures, use them slowly and try and use open-handed gestures as opposed to closed-handed gestures. So again, I would sit with your hands as comfortably as possible, either on your lap or on a desk or table that you're at, so that you appear to be comfortable. And if you are using hand gestures, just remember to use them slowly as opposed to quickly. And I don't want to say refrain from using too many, as Marsha had said, but don't overdo it.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I think that's all for today. Cheryl and Marsha, thanks a lot for the workshop. Really useful tips. I loved it. Do you have any final considerations?
I'd just like to say thank you so much for having us. It was great sharing these tips and ideas, and I really hope the students, will use them. Definitely, I could assure you that most likely in the very near future, you will be in one of these situations. So I just hope you take the information that we provided to you and you implement them in your interactions.
And I just like to say, you know what, when you're interviewing, whether it's in person or virtually, be yourself, be genuine, and be who you are. And that's what's going to come through, whether that's in person or virtually. The genuineness of who you are and yourself will speak to the person that you are, and your experiences will speak to those that you're bringing to the table to be able to do the job and the reason why you've applied to the job. So remember, be genuine, be yourself, and be confident in who you are and what you're bringing to the table for that job that you've applied for.